Hello, Swoon Squad. If you loved Letters to Juliet, then You with a View is just the rom-com road trip you've been looking for. Hello, Swoon Squad. Welcome to While You Were Reading, a podcast for contemporary romance readers. I'm your host, USA Today bestselling romantic comedy author, Lisa Daly. So today on While You Are Reading, we will be talking with rom-com author Jessica Joyce, who is the author of the brand new book, You with a View. Jessica lives happily ever after ongoing with her husband and son in the Bay Area. And when she's not writing character-driven, realistic, and relatable tales of millennials who are just doing their best while falling in love, you can find her listening to her Spotify playlist, trying out a new skincare face mask, crying over cute animal TikToks, or watching the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice, the best one. Also, we're pretty sure we might be related because we love all the same books and movies. All right, Swoonies, say hello to my new book bestie, Jessica Joyce. Welcome, Swoon Squad, and welcome to Jessica Joyce, debut author of You with a View. Look at this cutie. I love this book. I had so much fun reading it. I thought it was absolutely delightful.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here too. Okay, so as I mentioned in your bio, you are a big fan of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice.
The biggest.
Yeah. So why do you prefer that version of Pride and Prejudice?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I can quantify. It's just, there's something so magical about it. I know that I've watched it over 100 times, and it's just a movie that, if I'm having a bad day, if I'm having a good day, if I'm having a blah day.
You're having a Tuesday.
I'm having exactly a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever. It's just, I always know that I'm going to start watching it and just fall into this magical, comforting, romantic space that feels so safe and I mean, it's what I love about romance books too. It's I know exactly what I'm going to get with this movie, and it's going to be tender and beautiful, and the cinematography is amazing. The score is amazing. You know, the chemistry between Keira Knightley and Matthew, I can't say his last name.
Faden.
Yes, it's just next level. There's not one thing. Oh, actually, the hand flex.
Oh my God, the hand flex.
Yes.
Yes. As he just touches her hand, helping her into the carriage after they're at the Bingleys, right? And then you see that hand. Oh my God, I love that.
It's amazing.
I have, completely agree. That and the stutter, the "you have bewitched me, body and soul." I love.
Yes.
Oh,
it's
right?
So good. It's
I know.
So good. And there's this one, so, when he's proposing to her for the first time, when they're, under the, whatever it is, in the rain. And there's this one part that I just realized and it wasn't even on a rewatch. Someone told me, but there's this one moment after he said all of his, word soup stuff, insulting her family. And
you're inferior, but I would like to marry you anyway.
There's this one part where he looks down at her mouth for a brief moment.
He's gonna kiss it, right? He wants to kiss her so bad, and she wants it too.
She totally wants. It's honestly for me, it's peak enemies to lovers, because it's you can see how much they want each other and how much they don't want to want each other.
Yeah. And
how much they don't want to give in. And you're just kiss, it's just so.
Yes. That is absolutely it. So, favorite scene from the movie, hand flex, that scene? The one that when they get the walking, when you see him coming over the hill and you're come and get us.
Oh, totally. I feel like that scene, that at the end when he's, yes, walking through the meadow and it's sunrise and like, his aunt has just been there and she, Lizzie shut her down. And that entire scene to me feels really iconic. But as far as a moment goes, yes, the hand flex as a moment in time is like unbeatable.
If we meet up at a conference, we are totally watching Bride and Prejudice together.
100%.
All the favorite scenes. All the favorite scenes.
Yeah.
So let's move on to You with a View, which I absolutely loved.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about this setup and the plot for the book.
So it's about a woman who has recently lost her grandmother, and she finds amongst her stuff in a garage and like a box in the corner this stack of old pictures and a letter. And the pictures are of this very handsome man and her when she was young. And then the letter talks about a broken elopement, a broken engagement. And she's really intrigued because, her grandma was married to her grandpa for over 60 years. Like that was the one love of her life as far as Noelle, the main character, knew. And so she's like, who is this guy? Like that she was married, and she doesn't want to ask her family about it. Her dad in particular, it's his mother, doesn't want to ask him about it because like their relationship, their marriage was such a big deal in their family. Like everyone was like, if it's not like their marriage, I don't even want it. Like they're sort of the
benchmark.
Yes, exactly. And so she doesn't want to ask her dad about it, knows she can't ask anyone else in her family. Otherwise they'll go straight to her dad. So she decides to just like put it up on TikTok and be like, here are these pictures of my grandma and a man I don't know. If you know him, please reach out to me. I'd love to know what their story is. And the TikTok ends up going viral. And someone comments, that's my grandfather. So, she basically reaches out to the person who's commented on the TikTok. They set up a time to meet. And, when she shows up, she realizes that the man, the mystery man, Paul, is there, but so is his grandson, who happens to be her old high school nemesis, Theo Spencer. So
dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. It's like this big reveal moment. And, over the course of the next week or so, she kind of talks to Paul and starts to hear about his story with her grandma, Kathleen, and come to find out that they had planned this honeymoon road trip. They were going to elope and then they were going to go, on this road trip around the southwestern United States. And so, she's recently unemployed, living with her parents, like very much like, I don't even know what to do with my life right now. Right. And she decides to go on the road trip just because, she wants to feel closer to her grandmother. She wants to sort of, live out this moment that her grandma never got to live out. And Paul's like, great, I want to come with you. And so, Theo's going to come with us too. And she's like, oh, and, it sort of unravels from there. They go on the road trip and things happen as they do in romance novels. And so it was super fun to write.
It's a great setup. I did get a real Letters to Juliet vibe. And I was wondering if you were inspired by that film. I mean, it feels a little bit like a retelling, although there are definitely a lot of completely, original elements, which is great. I always love a good retelling because you get like all the things that you loved about, the first thing, but then it's done in a completely different way. So was that just my imagination or was that an inspiration for you?
It's so funny because people have said this, and I watched that movie ages ago. I love Amanda Seyfried.
Oh yeah.
She's amazing and has like the most beautiful hair ever, which is random, but like her hair is beautiful. But the actual inspiration is it sort of comes halfway from my personal life and halfway from just my like obsession with TikTok, to be honest with you. And so the original inspiration was that I had found pictures of my grandmother with a very handsome man.
Ooh, grandma. Nice.
Exactly. She was such a babe, so like no surprise. But you know, and this was back in 2000, I want to say 2016. So it was a long time ago. I was going through pictures of, you know, she kept stacks and stacks of pictures, like from all the way back in the 40s, you know, up until you know, current times. And so I had found a stack of photos with her and this super handsome guy. And I've shared some of the photos on my Instagram
Love
account.
that.
His name was Nick. And, you know, I was in a situation where like I could literally just turn to my aunt and be like, who is this hot guy? And she was like, you know, oh, that was Nick. You know, he was such a great family friend. Graham, you know, thought of him like a brother. And my grandma was in the other room and she was sick at the time. And she just yelled, not my brother. You know, she was like very clear about like, no, he was not like family to me. I liked him, you know, like they were never a thing because her mother didn't approve, but like she made it very clear that like had the circumstances been right, it would have happened.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I absolutely love that.
And so, it felt like a story to me, right? Like it just felt like, okay, that there's something there. And I kept it in my back pocket for a while.
I absolutely love that. I think that is so delightful. So let's talk about Theo. Yes. Yummy Theo. Yeah. What are some of the things about Theo that make him such a swoony book boyfriend?
I mean, I think for me, it's that right off the bat, I feel like it's obvious. You can tell that he's very into Noelle. You know, like he the way I imagine him and the way I wrote him, even though there's no, you know, it's not from his point of view at any point in the book, but like I do try to get into the head of the love interest as I'm writing, even though I'm writing from Noelle's perspective. And for me, it was that like, as soon as he saw her, he was like, oh, this girl, like she has always been this, and he says it in the book, she has always been this, you know, big part of his life, this, you know, competitor, this equal, this, you know, person who motivates him because they're super competitive with each other.
Love that.
You know, throughout the course of the book, but also in the past. And I think it's just very obvious, like from the start, that he is so into her, and that he needles her. He likes to rile her up, because that just he just like wants her attention. You know, like he like craves her attention, even if it's her being annoyed at him or like frustrated with him or whatever. But I think it's also that he, you know, she's going through a period in her life where she feels like she's at rock bottom professionally. Yeah. You know, she's really struggling with what the definition of success is. What does it mean? What does it look like? You know, and she feels like he is this sort of beacon of success. He's the co-founder of a successful company. You know, he's like in Forbes 30 under 30, like he's got a lot going for him. And I think, you know, what makes him so swoony to me is that from the very beginning, he's like, I think you're amazing. Like you don't realize it, but I do. And I see it in you. And he pushes her throughout the course of the book to really believe in herself, and believe that she can achieve the things that she wants to, but is scared of going after, like, which is so relatable. Like, of course, when we want things the most, like that's when we're most scared to go after them. And he really pushes her and believes in her. And like, he does it through this sort of like riling / roasting, but you can tell that he wants her to see herself the way that he sees her. And I think that that's so, like in relationships, that's what we all want, right? Is to be seen and to be believed in. And so I think that he really has that element going for him for sure.
I really loved that he still saw her as this competent competitor,
Mhm.
even though she was really feeling like rock bottom, that he could still see the things about her that she was kind of struggling to, remember about
Yeah.
herself. So
Yeah.
I really, really love that. I was going to ask you, you already shared a little bit. I was going to say most first novels are very, and this is your debut,
Mhm.
are very autobiographical.
Mhm.
And right. And so you shared that part of the story came from your experience with your grandmother.
Mhm.
Are there other elements of your personality or your story that found their way into this book?
I mean, I think the most overt portion is Noelle's relationship with her grandma. I had a very, very close relationship with my own grandma. And so that feels in a way sort of autobiographical, or like I borrowed elements of my relationship, how I felt about her, how close we were, for Noelle and her grandma's relationship. Um, and I think that I sort of look at it like, Noelle is 28, she's a millennial. I sort of look at like what a typical millennial feeling. Like I feel like a lot of people at that stage of their life are really struggling with like, what am I doing? What is my life going to be like professionally? What am I going through? What do I want? And so in that way, and I definitely felt that way when I was her age as well. And so in that way, I think I borrowed a little bit from that. And funnily enough, like she in the book, she gets laid off, and I got laid off at the beginning of this year. So I'm like, it's retroactively a little autobiographical in that way. But I do think like the most overt sort of borrowing from my real life is that relationship element between her and her grandma.
I love that. My grandmother passed when I was, I think, 8 years old,
Mm.
and we were very, very close, but I still
Mhm.
feel extremely connected to her
Yeah.
because part of it, well, I mean, we were very connected anyway,
Yeah.
but my mother was really close to her. I'm really close to my
Mhm.
mother. Like it feels like this sort of ongoing thing.
Mhm.
But also, my grandmother always wanted an author in the family. She could not think of any greater job that anyone could ever have. And
Mhm.
so when I became an author, I felt this like profound sense of accomplishment that I had done this thing that she always wanted.
Yeah.
And I still feel, I have a picture of her in my office. Like I was really, like, I have always felt connected to her, but especially around that area of writing.
Totally.
Yeah, and I love the memories and the feelings that Noelle
Mhm.
has about her grandmother. I think that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So this question is Theo's
Mhm.
Grandpa Paul.
Yep.
He accompanies Noelle and Theo along on this trip.
Yep.
And I love that you did that. So
Mhm.
aside from like bringing some context to the situation,
Mhm.
what else do you think Grandpa Paul brings to the story?
This is such a good question because, and I'll tell you, when I was drafting this book, at first I wasn't going to have him come along. It was just going to be Noelle and Theo. Um, because, like when you think about road trips and romance, it's always
Mm-hmm.
the main characters, the love interest, whatever. Um, but as I was getting closer to the point where she was deciding that she was going to go on the trip and she was going to tell Paul, I was like, there's something about having him there, not just for the context of the letters that, he shares where Kathleen is writing him, but also he serves as this like catalyst and roadblock for Noelle and Theo, because it's very obvious from the beginning that he's like, oh, there's a spark, like, something's happening. And so he's sort of low key, like boop, boop, like pushing them together. But it's also like, they're on the road together. They're staying in hotels and Airbnbs. Like there's very close proximity, not just between Noelle and Theo, but with Paul too. And so for a while, he does serve as this roadblock for them to hooking up, because they're like, first of all, we can see that he wants us to like be together.
Right.
And Noelle is like, there's no way that I'm going to be in a relationship with this man. Absolutely not. Never, never. And of course, you know, as a reader, you're like, okay, sure.
Sure, honey.
Sure, Jan. And so, you know, so he does serve as that sort of roadblock, which I think helps keep the tension up for a while, because it is like, oh, we want to, but we can't. We want to, but we can't. We want to, but we can't. And then, but at the same time, he really is serving as this like, oh, look at, you have so much in common. Look, you have this, you know, commonality, because, you know, I and Noelle's grandmother were, you know, in this sort of ill-fated relationship, and look at these letters, read them together, you know, like, he was this really interesting device for me to play with the tension of like pushing them together, pulling them apart. And I also felt like it was really important for me to grow the relationship between Noelle and Paul, because, and for her to see how close Theo and Paul were, and let that feel her.
I love that aspect of the relationship.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, I think, that you see this side of Theo with Paul, who, and you can like see kind of what a good guy he is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Okay, swoonies, you know what's coming next. Every week on While You Are Reading, we give away a copy of our book of the week. So yay! If you would like to win a copy of You with a View, all you need to do is go to whileyouarereading.com, or you can just click the link at the top of the show notes. Good luck, everybody. In this part of the show, it's actually become one of my favorite little segments of the show, because a lot of times I'm interviewing people that I already know, but sometimes I'm interviewing authors who are new to me, just like you.
Yeah.
And so it's always fun to see what kind of book recommendations you have. Okay. Do you want to go first, or do you want to go second?
I'll go second. You go first.
Okay. The book that I'm recommending to you is also by a debut novelist. Do you have this book already?
Yes, she's a friend of mine also. I've read literally everything that she's written, whether it's been published or not. And it's in my stack. I have her in my stack.
Get out. I love this book. Okay, well then I don't need to tell you about all the great things about it. I loved The Nanny. I thought Lana was hilarious and delightful. Funny. Right? We actually did an interview with her on the show, and I think that her book comes out later on, and so you guys will see that coming up. But I love that book. So I can just tell you, right? So the reason that I recommended it to you is because, and for you guys at home, The Nanny is about a former OnlyFans performer who becomes the nanny for her biggest OnlyFan, except he doesn't recognize her because he's never seen her face. And the whole thing is delicious. And yeah, right. And all the way through, you have like these like old communications from them from when she was on. It's really, and it's crazy steamy.
Oh, super hot.
Right?
Super hot. Yes.
Super hot. I know. And I was like, for a debut, like this is a skill. Writing steamy sex scenes is a skill that a lot of authors really struggle with, even if they've got everything else. But man, she nailed it like right out of the gate. Yeah. So good. And the reason I recommended, even though we didn't know each other, is because like in You with a View, Cassie, the main character in The Nanny, finds herself unemployed. She's kind of more open to what's coming, and also some forced proximity, which I love. That's one of my favorite tropes. So it's a good fit. All right, let's see your book stack, girl. I want to see what you're recommending for me.
Okay, so I have several.
Love that.
Two are newer, and then one is of like an all-time favorite of mine, and it's older.
Oh, love that.
So the first one is Plane Trains and All the Feels by Living Heart.
Oh.
So this is a partial road trip, partial flying planes. It's literally planes, trains, and automobiles. Like,
except with love.
Yes, exactly. So it's about a woman named Cassidy and a man named Luke. And they are both flying, to the West Coast for, different reasons. And a storm basically grounds their plane. And they have sort of like, it's a meet not cute at first because they butt heads. And they end up, having to sort of travel together to their eventual destinations via train, via car, via like, all of these different things. And they are met with sort of disasters at every turn. It's sort of a sunshine grumpy. Cassidy is very, she is a sunshine character. Luke is, I wouldn't call him grumpy, but he's definitely more like reserved until he's not in like but it's just such a fun book. Livy is like literally one of the funniest people on earth, both in her books and in real life. And there are, it's steamy, it's funny, it's there are some really, touching moments. Like it's just this like beautiful, well-rounded, amazing rom-com. It came out May 23rd. And I adore it. I've read it several times. And it's amazing.
This sounds like all the things I love. So thank you very much for that recommendation. I'm excited to read that one. All right.
And then we've already talked about The Nanny, so I'll skip that one.
You were going to recommend The Nanny to me as I was recommending it to you.
I literally have it.
It's like, right? Okay. We definitely have a little, right? Exactly.
Yeah, we're connected. And then Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. This one is, they're on the Pacific Coast Trail. So it's about Alexi and Ben. They meet each other on the Pacific Coast Trail. I think that's what it's called. As they're sort of hiking their way, up to Washington. And it's just this like, Anita's writing does something to my soul. Like there's something so, I don't know, like comforting about it. It's just so like they write so beautifully. And this book in particular is so, I don't know, there's something really healing about it. Like there's a lot of, nature descriptions, obviously, because they're out hiking in nature. It's such a tender love story. Like these two men, who are really, Alexi in particular, like trying to rediscover themselves, and they find each other along the way. The last 25% of this book is like, I mean, I was just like, I don't cry in books. Like I don't cry when I'm reading books, but there's something about the last 25% of this book that like just went straight into my heart, and I was a disaster, and in like the most amazing, beautiful way. Like it's a very healing book in so many ways, and it's beautiful. I love Anita. They're amazing, and I would read anything they write.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I'm a fan of Anita Kelly, so I really am super excited about that one too.
Yes. And then finally,
there's more.
This is an older one.
Okay.
But this is a book that I mean, it's a Christina Lauren book. So
I love her. Them. I say her. Yeah. I love them. Them. We did an interview with them. I did an interview with them, and they are as hilarious in person as
they're great.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So, and they definitely have books, I feel like, that are their like go-to recommendations. Right. Like people always know like Love in Other Words and The Unhoneymooners. But this one, Twice in a Blue Moon,
it's on my nightstand.
Oh my gosh. I love this book. I feel like I will tell anyone who will listen, anyone and everyone who will listen, like, please read this book. And I was, in fact, Alicia Thompson and I have this like Christina Lauren book club that we do. Like every month we reread, because we've both read every Christina Lauren book out there. But we reread a book, and then we email each other back and forth like, this is what I thought this time. This is what I thought this time. And I'm like, this has to be like in one of our upcoming months. Like we have to reread this book, because it's a second chance. It's dual timeline, but it's done so interestingly to me, like from a craft perspective.
It's done so well. It's like, Yeah.
The past is front loaded. So you read everything that happens in the past between Tate and Sam from the start, and then you go fully into the present. And, there's when they meet, they're 18 years old. They meet over in London when they're both on trips with their grandparents. And they there's this immediate attraction between them.
Right.
They spend all their time together, and then obviously something happens where she ends up feeling betrayed by Sam. And her dad is famous, so it involves that
some stuff around that. Yeah.
And then in the present tense, she's an actress who is going to be playing a part in this movie, and she's going to the set to basically start, the job, and comes to find out when she gets there that Sam has written the movie and he's on set with her. It's, again, forced proximity, which is just delicious.
Delicious.
And the second chance element. I love second chance romances. There's so much longing involved, so much pining, so much yearning. It's just this book in particular, I just feel like is one of their best from a writing perspective, from the beauty of the writing. I just think is so spectacular. And I don't know, I could read it a million times and never have enough.
I love it. It's like one of 3 books on my nightstand right now. And it's always, that's where it lives. It is one of my favorite Christina Lauren books. Although have you read The True Love Experiment yet?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I love it.
It was so good.
It
was so good. I especially loved that, and we talked about this on the show. I loved the tropes of all of the dating contestants on the show.
Too.
It was such a romance thing. It was just, and it was, I think, romance novelist candy, that whole.
Oh, 100%.
Right. It was just it was so good. And also I love the fact that the book came about because the fans wanted Fizzy to have her own story, and I just thought that was so delightful.
Yeah, I loved that book. It felt very classic Chloe to me, so romantic, so unapologetically romantic, which I love, Ditto. It was such a love letter to romance readers and writers, I felt like.
It really, really was. Very nice. Fantastic. Good news, Swoon Squad. If you love steamy hockey romantic comedies, you will be happy to know that The Cutting Edge by yours truly, Lisa Daly, is in stores now. The Cutting Edge is a laugh out loud hockey romantic comedy, perfect for fans of Helena Hunting and Pippa Grant. Here's the story. Logan Rivers is a star hockey player for the St. Pete Slashers, and he is in a slump. He has not scored in 3 games, and it is starting to totally freak him out. Enter Coco, an Olympic figure skater who strikes a deal with an assistant coach to be Logan's lucky charm so that she can pay off her Olympic training expenses. Everything is starting to look up for both of them. She's almost got her debt paid off. The Slashers are on a winning streak. There's only one problem. She doesn't know how to tell Logan she's been lying to him the whole time. If she can just keep her secret until the playoffs are over. The Cutting Edge is in stores now. Hey, Theo, will you be my book boyfriend? So would Theo make a good book boyfriend? Well, first, he is very, very into Noelle. And like we all do, I can really appreciate a man who's all about me. Number 2, he has a little bit of a competitive streak, which I have to say I found very, very appealing, especially the steamy banter that goes along with it. He loves to get Noelle all spun up, and I just love to watch. Number 3, he has a great relationship with his grandfather. There's some real tenderness there, which makes me all melty on the inside, like ice cream on a hot day. All right, so You with the Views, Theo, is a solid 4.5 ring book boyfriend. You with a View has some of our absolute favorite tropes. We've got forced proximity, a romantic road trip, enemies to lovers, only one bed, and many, many more. You're going to love this one. I'm your host, Lisa Daly. Thank you so much for listening, Swoonies. As is our way here on While You Are Reading, we're giving away a copy of You with a View to a lucky winner this week. So to enter, you're just going to head on over to whileyouarereading.com, or you can click the link in the show notes below. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, sharing, and rating While You Are Reading. I'm so incredibly grateful for your support of the show. And remember, if anyone ever asks you when you fell madly in love with contemporary romance, you can just tell them it was while you were reading. All my love till next time.